Throughout my lifetime, feminism has been made into a slur on the right. It gets blamed for marriage and birth rates plummeting, for men not keeping up in the workplace, for inflation, for daycare prices, and even for swaying the outcomes of political elections. How dare we? These criticisms are revealing, the people making them adhere to the belief that women are second class citizens, that they are not deserving of autonomy, that their purpose is to serve men and serve society, I guess, by making more wage slave taxpayers. These people believe women shouldn't have a say in the very government that dictates their own way of life. They believe that women should be financially dependent on a man so that they can be more easily controlled. And they simultaneously believe that women are inferior and that men can't compete with them and keep up in the workplace and therefore shouldn't have to. No one said these people were smart. They also believe that women should perform the subservient labor that men find to be beneath them, like childcare and housework and cooking. And on top of that, they believe that they should do it for free. And that has all been clear within these criticisms of feminism all along. You didn't have to poke too deeply to see the underlying motivations and belief systems from this crowd. But thanks to the internet, we have more insight into the thinking of stupid people than ever before in history. And lately, they're just spelling it out. Today, I want to take a look at the world the anti-feminists envision for women and lay some of their hypocrisy bare. Let's dig in. Hey guys, I'm Hannah Cox. Welcome to my channel where I bring you politically homeless takes on politics and culture. Before we get started, take a second to like this video, head over and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss any of my videos. Now, because I'm considered a right-wing influencer, even though I left the right long ago, I guess because I come from like right-wing spaces, a lot of people within my audience are still predominantly right-wing. And so when I talk about these subjects, I often get told to shut up and go back to talking about policy, as if these nobodies get to dictate what I spend my time talking about on my platforms. But I also get told by a lot of these people that all of these subject matters, all of these conversations that we're having in society are simply not real life, which is so obviously intentionally obtuse to me. Like, yes, they are. First and foremost, social media is revealing. It is the public square. People are having these same conversations on there that they're having in real life. They're just oftentimes having them more brazenly because they can hide behind anonymous accounts. But claiming that this isn't real life is an excuse. It's an excuse to not confront it because you don't like what's being put in front of you. And on top of all of those factors, I have the additional anecdotal experience of having grown up trad. Need I remind you, I am from the South, a Southern Baptist preacher's daughter. I was homeschooled. I was raised trad before it was even coined as a term. I know these people. I am these people. I come from these people. I know what they believe, and I've seen how it plays out in the vast majority of households over time. And there's always been a spin on this in both religious and conservative circles, right? They say, just stay home. Men are going to provide for you. You just go play in the field and pick flowers. Like, why would you want to work, you little girl? We just want to take care of you. We're just so benevolent. We just love women. We just so appreciate mothers. We don't think that you should have to work. We think that's beneath you, actually. And so what we want you to do is stay home and nap and have an easy life and just get to be creative and pursue your passions. And why would you not want that? Beware of those who diminish work. They are snakes in the grass. And I don't care if they're coming from a communist perspective or a socially conservative one. Work is not your enemy. And if you find that your main objective in life is to somehow sidestep it, you need to do some work within yourself. Because really, work is where most people derive dignity. It's where they do find their purpose. Without work, most people would atrophy. A lot of people like to think that they would be the neighborhood poet if just not for capitalism, which first and foremost, if you want to be the neighborhood poet, you can do that under capitalism, provided you're any good. But secondarily, if you were to move into some of the alternative systems like communism, you still wouldn't get to just kick it and write poetry. No, you would have the kinds of work that you had to do dictated to you because work must be done in order for the wheels of society to turn. And trying to negate that fact makes you a child and naive and easy to prey upon by people who want to take something from you. If that's a communist system, it's people who want to grift off of your labor and control you. And if we're talking about social conservatism, oftentimes the motivations are the same. Now, I'm not saying that no woman should ever be a stay-at-home mom. I have over and over and over spoken up for stay-at-home moms. My mother largely was a stay-at-home mom. That might be the best pathway for you. And if it is, all I would encourage you to do is to protect yourself legally and financially. Not only because you don't always know what your husband might do, but also because you just don't know what the world might do. He could die. The economy could crash. Part of being an adult, whether you're a male or a female, whether you're working or staying at home, is being prepared to face reality. But you'll notice that when we have these conversations in right-wing circles and we talk about women staying at home, there's never that asterisk encouraging them to protect themselves, to still get their education, to still develop some skills, to ensure that they are fully able to access the assets their husband is out building while they're at home providing for them. Instead, the conversations sound like this.
Someone explain to me why it's a controversial and crazy take to believe that women shouldn't have to work a job. Are they telling me that's what women were put on this earth to do? They weren't meant to, go to farmers markets and run around and do fun things all day and read books and sunbathe and nap all day.
This is why women should not work. Yes, I think I just raised some eyebrows and some blood pressure with that one. Creating a modern system where everybody creates value in abstract ways and then gets a coupon for the work that they did has really led to gender inequality in large. See, that system was meant to manipulate labor, like hard work, like agriculture being one of the first ones. So yes, capitalism is geared towards generating value out of men. And so men are still compensated better in many of the fields that are attached to capitalism. And so there's a few problems that I personally have, and I think it's just bad for the world in general, which is there's a system that abstracts value creation and it gives men an inherent advantage. And then we've somehow talked people into wanting to participate in the system, and we've gaslit women into wanting to participate in that system, but further gaslighting them into making them believe that they have to participate in that system. I will argue that a man can be a provider, which is part of his nature, part of the testosterone. He can be a provider without it generating currency. A man could be a handyman, he could be a hunter, he could do a lot of stuff to provide and to protect. So if a man can a woman also provide or to create value without it having to be part of capitalism? I believe that that's true.
Never can I ever find a sane video to play for you guys when I go searching on this subject matter, almost always because somebody on the left has taken something a man on the right has said and is critiquing it and has some valid critiques, but then starts throwing an anti-capitalist drivel. Again, missing the entire point. They never understand capitalism, first and foremost. Capitalism is not why you have to work. Capitalism is not why you need money. That is just a hard reality of being an adult. No matter what system you're in, even if you're a hunter or gatherer, you're going to have to work and create value and ascertain the means you need to feed and clothe and house yourselves. Grow up and get over it. Secondarily, capitalism is a gift to humanity. And I could talk about this under like 10 to 12 different contexts, but when we talk about work is freedom. If you look at the vast majority of countries, even today, people do not have the same autonomy that we in the US have to not only pursue work and find it readily available when you want it, but even to be able to pursue work that you find meaningful. That is such a privilege throughout history. And nobody outside the US has ever had more access to that. People who want to pretend that having a 9-to-5 air-conditioned job is somehow akin to slavery are effing cracked in the head. I can't even entertain them with a straight face anymore. You're very lucky that when you want to work, you can find a job. That is not something that is granted to most people in systems outside of capitalism. And that's why in many countries, even today, people go hungry and cannot find jobs to perform. That's why when you see somebody trying to convince you that working is bad, that working is oppressive, you should know that they are trying to manipulate you. Working is a privilege, and working in nice, cushy conditions is an even bigger privilege. And working in a country where you can hustle and work really hard and even go pursue jobs that you might find creatively interesting is the highest of privileges. So stop complaining and get to work. Secondarily, nothing is free. If you were to have this system that many of these men and some pick-me women are encouraging under social conservatism as of late, you'd have a lot of problems still. First and foremost, what happens to the women who aren't married, because their entire idea for how women would support themselves if they aren't working would be that they would be dependent upon their husbands. But not everybody has a husband, and not everybody who has a husband at one point has a husband that stays faithful or that keeps a job or that doesn't blow their money on gambling or porn or other addictions. And some people who have husbands who die. In fact, men are still more likely to die earlier than women. So you've got a lot of older women that would be without husbands. So right away, there's some plot holes. Now, obviously, the unspoken push within this conversation is that they think more women should have to get married, that if women couldn't earn their own money and had to be financially dependent, then they would just take whatever loser they had to latch onto so that they could survive. And somehow they think that that is okay to suggest. They'll never suggest that men improve. They'll never suggest that men get better in order to obtain a wife. It's always that women need to lower their standards and be forced into taking this heap of a pile of garbage man that society doesn't want otherwise. And let's take it even a step further. Let's say the conditions are met and all women are pushed into marriages and dependent on men and not working. Do you not think a man is then going to extract the value he thinks he is giving you out of you? I have seen this up close and in person. I don't know hardly any women who are stay-at-home mothers whose husbands are just generous and benevolent and who are like, you know what, I don't want you to work. I just want you to go and have a great time and lunch and go exercise and don't worry about cleaning the house and don't worry about cooking and we're going to still hire some childcare for you on top of that. Only the richest people do that. And that's because they have enough money to where they don't notice the difference of the work the woman would be contributing in the home. That's not something most men will ever obtain, whether women are working or not. And so instead, what you tend to hear when there are stay-at-home moms is that the husbands expect certain services. They expect food to be ready at certain times. They expect to be catered to. They expect the house to be clean. They still expect the woman to be in really good shape. They think she should run all over with the kids. That doesn't leave a whole lot of time for pursuing any of your own interests, by the way. Childcare does not stop, and neither does the housework that accompanies it. It's actually a lot more labor than going and working a 9 to 5. And remember, they want you to do all that labor essentially for free. If this was such a great situation, if this was such a desirable way of life, then men would absolutely be trying to do it. The fact the vast majority of them are not tells you what they actually think about those kinds of roles. They don't want to do them, so they are trying to gaslight you into wanting to do them. Money is ultimately power. Money is freedom. And that is why very few men would put all of that power into their partner's unilateral control. And that's really what feminism actually changed, because women always worked. And I am getting really tired of pretending that they didn't. This is a linchpin of this entire conversation right now, right? Like post-feminism, all these women entered the workforce and then men, they couldn't compete and then they didn't get as good at jobs and then they couldn't make as much money because women were getting paid too. And then women stopped staying home and raising their kids. And so now the cost of daycare is very expensive because women selfishly started working and getting paid for it instead of staying home and working for free. And it's all just very, very stupid because women have been working throughout history. Like, yes, you did see an increase in the workforce participation rate among women post the 1960s, 70s after second wave feminism, but that doesn't mean they weren't working before. They just weren't counted. It wasn't measured. They often were even blocked from being paid when they were married. They were doing what we call invisible labor. And these clowns will even admit as much, right? Look at this guy. He weighed in on Twitter this week. This tweet has gotten millions and millions of views. He's quote tweeting a woman who said, "Maturing as a woman is realizing your mother is really just a girl who probably had her light stolen from her by a man." And he quote tweeted this woman and decided to just prove her point. He said, "Most of the women in my mother's generation had many children, 5 or more. Most were married and most had a job plus multiple side hustles like farming, sewing, shops, etc. And they still had time to raise children. This generation, all you do is cry and blame men for your laziness." So first and foremost, we agree that women have always worked. Secondarily, this guy is getting clowned all over the internet because can you imagine not only like typing this thought out, but then being like, yep, I'm going to post this, and not understanding what you're really saying. This woman said 5+ children, a job, multiple side hustles, submissive. Does that sound like anything to aspire to? And then according to y'all, again, men have always been the providers and protectors. Why did these women need to work like donkeys day and night then? Where were the fathers? Like, men will literally write something like this about their moms and grandmas and be like, look how great they were. Look how amazing my mom and grandma was, without stopping and thinking, oh my God, they didn't have a choice. They didn't probably want to do this either. And why was my grandfather or my father such an absolute deadbeat that they had to live like this? Another woman quote tweeted him and said, interesting to hear how men view older women in their lives. Their value and worth is based on how much they endure. I never hear men speak about how much they love seeing their mothers enjoy life. It then leads to my question, do men only praise women who thrive in suffering? While it is very clear that men have not been having very deep conversations with their mothers and grandmothers about their experiences, which doesn't surprise me because I'm pretty sure most men are not having deep conversations with anyone about anything, the women have. Women are mentors, and they have been taking the time to warn younger women to talk to their daughters and granddaughters. We are being given firsthand insight into how they really felt and what their lives were really like. And this is why you always see these types trying to divide women by convincing younger women that older women are just jealous and bitter. And I even fell for some of that when I was younger. I remember sort of like leaning into that at times. Ugh, so embarrassing. Because once you become a somewhat older woman, I'm 37, so I'm not even old, but like once you get a little bit of life under your feet, you realize very quickly, like, honey, they are not jealous or bitter. They are worried about you. They are protective of you, because women are the true protectors in society, as I've argued in other videos in the past. They do not want those men. They are not competing for you. A lot of them don't want men at all. They are just concerned with protecting other women. And it's interesting because I never see older men have that attitude towards younger men. And I think that that contributes heavily to the failings we're seeing amongst the younger generations when it comes to the male population. Like, the older men are not doing their jobs of helping to raise those men and teach them how to think. This woman on Twitter said, my mom literally told me that if she was born in this era, she wouldn't have gotten married. Another person said, same thing my grandmother tells me alongside all older women her age. They are always like, with the education and opportunities you young women have today, there is no reason to tie yourself down with a man, get a child, your own land, and thrive. Another woman said, any woman who has had deep conversations with their grandmothers and other women from that generation will know that these women will always advise you to get your own money and be self-sufficient so that you never end up in such situations. It wasn't a choice for them. And she added, in 2021, someone asked if women wanted to marry men like their fathers, and the responses mostly were, God forbid, no way. But men are seeking wives like their mothers. And I saw this really interesting article. It was published in Time magazine going around. It's titled The Myth of the Male Breadwinner, and the byline on it says, throughout human history and in cultures across the world, women have contributed to productive labor and men have contributed to caring for children. Within the piece, they write, even now globally, the male breadwinner, female homemaker division of labor is unusual, writes evolutionary behavioral scientist Rebecca Sear. Childcare is not the exclusive preserve of women in most societies, and even more so, productive labor is not the exclusive preserve of men. That includes during our hunter-gatherer days, which account for some 95% of human evolutionary history. The idea of man the hunter, woman the caregiver, widely popularized by male anthropologists in the 1960s, is, Hardy notes, a massively mistaken trope. There's growing evidence that in many hunter-gatherer cultures, women hunted. How common this was is debated, but it may not matter because either way, women were key in provisioning food for their community. In fact, in several foraging societies in sub-Saharan Africa, often considered the closest likeness to our shared evolutionary past, women's average contribution to their community's calorie intake ranged between 60 and 80%. The piece continued, still more women labored in farming communities than you might think. In medieval Europe, peasant women worked alongside men doing almost exactly the same jobs in the fields. In cities, they worked as servants, nannies, craftspeople, or bookkeepers for the family business. And even as the Industrial Revolution turned society upside down, women continued to work outside of the home. And it goes without saying, then as now, they worked hard inside the home too, whether by taking on paid work like sewing or taking lodgers or handling unpaid domestic duties. At factories, they were seen as attractive employees, often because owners could pay them lower wages than men. So much so that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled to limit women's work hours. Female employment also was kept down through policies like marriage bars, which banned married women from paid work. Even so, women often sought paid work outside of the home. By 1900, the census reported that 1 in 5 U.S. workers were women, yet actual numbers were likely far higher, given that paid work was narrowly defined to be that, among other criteria, someone chiefly dependent for support, unlikely for many married women, not to mention that the stigma against working women meant that few families were likely to report this work accurately to a census taker. Yeah, so do not let them convince you that women were not working. They just weren't getting paid for it, and they had no rights to the proceeds of the unpaid labor that they were generating by keeping the home either. Labor like washing dishes, mopping floors, and yes, making the bed, which is one chore you don't have to pay me to do anymore in my home. And that's because I wake up so refreshed thanks to our new bedding from Cozy Earth. These buttery, soft sheets are so breathable and cool, I sleep like a man in them. Side note, I never know why people say sleep like a baby, because babies don't sleep that good. Men, however, sleep like the dead. So I sleep like a man in them. I wake up feeling like my husband, well rested and type B without a care in the world. Not only do these sheets feel luxurious, they look it too. The bedding is so elegant and regal. I love making my bed almost as much as I love getting into it. If you know me, you know I can become a little obsessive with products and brands that I really love, and I am quickly becoming a Cozy Earth evangelist because I think everyone should have bedding that feels this good. So good news for my listeners, Cozy Earth is offering a whopping 40% discount this month, not only on their bedding, but on their entire website with the promo code Hannah Cox. If you run the numbers on your girl math calculator, that means your order is basically free. So head over to their website now. You can find it in my show notes, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel while you're at it. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Not only do anti-feminist men want women unpaid for their labor, they also don't want to share the wealth they feel they could generate from an unpaid servant in the home. Over the past few days, I've seen this tweet from prominent racist and white nationalists and pick-me wannabe, like she's kind of the next Pearl type, I guess, Sarah. She's had a tweet that's been going viral, and it's really upset her seedy grifter, groper, I don't even know how you say their name. Those freak weirdos online are mostly who's in her audience, and they're very upset by this post she made where she said marriage should be one bank account, no prenup, a billion kids, no divorce for any reason. Somebody responded to her and said, one bank accounting means giving your wife all your money. And she said, yes. And so the red pill media took a screenshot of this tweet and posted it and said, you're base right-wing e-girl, because obviously they think this is not base. They're furious. Similarly, I saw this tweet going viral of this young man that was posting about getting married at 29 and his dad telling him essentially to not give his wife too much access to his money, and how he rebuffed that and how most people in healthy marriages would rebuff that. And his comment section is a disaster. It's filled with men basically telling him he's an idiot and that you shouldn't put your wife on your property and that you shouldn't let her have a bank account. And somebody quote tweeted him and said, look at the comment section and then you blame feminists for radicalizing women against marriage. So much wickedness in their hearts for someone you start a family and have children with. And it really is interesting to me because so many of the people in these social conservative conversations are men who at least claim to be Christians and upstanding moral citizens. And again, the churches that they go through a lot of motions to convince women within these ideologies that they are cherished and protected and that they are getting so much in exchange for willingly submitting to their husband and living outside the norms of society. And I just think it's interesting to contrast the attitudes that they have towards women and their right to access the assets that they are helping to generate when you compare it to people like Dave Portnoy, who is a true degenerate, okay? He's actually like, again, he's just a degenerate. I don't even have a better word than that. He's like a womanizer and a gambler, and he's always hooking up with like OnlyFans models. But listen to how he talks about his relationship with money in pertaining to his ex-wife.
Hold on. Is it true your ex-wife have access to your bank account?
Yeah. I told you, I trust her implicitly.
I beg your pardon?
Implicitly. I trust her. If she wanted to take it, she could. There's very few people that you meet where you can trust implicitly. And to be honest, she was there when we were living at the in-laws' house. She was there when we couldn't afford a hamburger. She was there through the grind. She, to me, just like we kind of separated when we started making it.
Right.
So she doesn't get to enjoy any of that.
Right.
To me, that's not right.
Wow. Hey,
I'm a loyalty guy.
You are a boy. You loyal to the song for real.
Yeah.
I don't know too many people doing that.
No, it surprises people. But she could have, if she wanted to do something with it, she
Right.
could have done with it a long time ago.
If your ex-wife, is she married?
She's dating somebody, boyfriend.
And you cool with that?
Yeah. I want her to be happy. It's true.
But then she can't get no more access, Dave. She got to cut off, cut her low.
I won't even notice if it's gone.
You mean to tell me she might,
I mean, if she takes it all.
no, but she might take like, you know what? I'm gonna have this extravagant wedding. I'm gonna spend, $500,000 on a wedding. You cool with?
Yes. 100%. 100%.
Lord have mercy. What did you learn during that marriage about yourself?
She's still my best friend. Like, we get along.
Better as friends than in
Yeah,
a relationship.
yeah, but she was with me at the beginning of this company. And like, if she called me right now, it's like, I need you, I'd be there. It's like, it just didn't work as a marriage.
Like, it's crazy how much more he actually respects his ex-wife and women than these men in these social conservative circles do. A lot of young women are getting sold a false bag of goods right now, and the leopards are going to eat their faces as fast as they did other women in the past. You don't have to look far to find women who bought into this ideology when their brains were still fully forming, which is when they target you in your teens and your early 20s to mid 20s, who have already now at my age been discarded, been divorced, and been cut off from the finances that they helped to build. You're not special if you buy into this. You're just easily manipulated. And this is why I think laziness is such a vice. It makes you easy to manipulate. It is far better to work than it is to buy into this idea of just hoping that somebody takes care of you like a child and always treats you right within that relationship. Women in your past fought tooth and nail. I mean, I was listening to a podcast about the women's suffrage movement not long ago. These women, just for peacefully protesting, were arrested, were beaten, had eggs put down tubes in their noses to force feed them when they went on hunger strikes. Women fought tooth and nail and often even died to try to ensure that women today have rights, have options, have choices. And so to thumb your nose at that, I think makes you the biggest fool I could possibly conceive of. We are so privileged thanks to feminism and thanks to capitalism, and so many idiots around me are too stupid to even recognize it, and I'm getting fed up. People in other countries, the women who came before you, would not make these kinds of mistakes. I love this tweet where someone said, one thing I actually love and learn from men is their ability to live for themselves, but they get angry and violent to women living for themselves. They want women to live for them whilst they live for themselves. Dear women, always put you first. And I think that's the moral of the story. I think marriage is a beautiful thing. I love being married. I talk to my husband all the time about how great I find marriage to be with him, but it's only great for women with the right person and under the right conditions, which is not true for men. Men still benefit greatly from marriage and having kids, even if they're with somebody they're not that crazy about or who isn't the best catch. So women need to be very careful when they're entering into these arrangements. And if you're not going to work, you need to make sure that you've gone through lengths to protect yourself. Ultimately, marriage rates and birth rates declining right now is probably a good thing for most women. As this post said, 45% of women between ages 25 through 44 are expected to be single and childless by 2030. Beware, the patriarchy will convince you that this is a terrible thing to happen to women, but it is in fact a terrible thing to happen to men. All right, guys, I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and if you want even more content, you can head over to some of the links in my bio. Also, I am restarting my Substack. It has been dormant for a couple of years now, but I finally have the time to focus on it again. So head over and subscribe there as well if you want more written content.